Hello, my name is Ivy Potter, and this is my presentation about ADHD. And my goal here is really for everyone to understand, have a good idea how to plan, and then we can thrive in our classrooms. So what is ADHD? Well, it's attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. There's a lot of things that go into that. But it's a chronic condition, and millions of children have it. And it's really a combination of a lot of symptoms and problems and impulsive behavior that these children have. So according to the IDEA in 2004, students with ADHD are identified in the category of other health impairments. So because it is recognized by the IDEA, an IEP, an intervention plan can be implemented. So features of ADHD. ADHD, the symptoms start before the age of 12. They're noticeable as early as 3 years of age, but the primary features are predominantly inattentive symptoms and hyperactivity or hyperactive impulsive symptoms. And we'll go into that, and you can get a combination of either. So we're going to focus on inattention. So a child who has inattention, this is going to be apparent in your class because they're going to lose stuff really easy. They're going to have trouble focusing on tasks and play. They're not going to show real close attention to detail, and they're going to forget to do some things that they do every day that they should know that they're doing. And really, organization is going to be an issue as well. So it's going to be pretty apparent and going to create some problems in your classroom just through those things, you know, losing schoolwork, assignments, not being able to stay on task. And they can even appear to not even listen when you're directly talking to them. So that's all part of that inattention. The next one is hyperactivity and impulsivity. This is going to be really apparent in your classroom. This is going to interrupt your class. These kids tend to fidget and tap. They blurt out answers. They'll interrupt you. Even, you know, peers will interrupt their peers. They talk a lot. You know, and they'll run around and do things that aren't appropriate in that situation. They'll have a problem staying seated, really grounding themselves. But you can have a combination of either of these. It's not just either the child has inattentive symptoms or hyperactivity and impulsive symptoms. It can be a combination of either. And so some of those additional behaviors is it's going to affect relationships, not only at school but at home, in really all facets of their life. And this is going to persist for, you know, at least 6 months. This is how you're going to know that, wait, this child maybe has ADHD if they haven't been diagnosed yet. Or you're going to know that the problems persist outside of school. You're not the only one that's experiencing these problems. So some of the statistics. There's a lot of kids with ADHD, about 1 in 11. If you think about, you have an average classroom of about, you know, 20 students to 25 students, they're saying that at least 2 of those are most likely going to have ADHD, or you're most likely going to have a student with this diagnosis. Boys are 12.1% more than twice as likely than girls to have an ADHD diagnosis. I don't know really why that is. It's just what the CDC has found. So Also, what I noticed from these statistics is that more children, when they get into that 4th and 5th grade, even going, above that, but 4th and 5th grade is really when the heavy diagnoses start. More children are diagnosed. It maybe becomes more of a problem. I'm not for sure, but it goes from about 1 in 15 kids to 1 in 9. And, then it slows down a little bit as they get older, and they can grow out of this when they're adults, but once again, it gets maybe a little bit more severe. Also, it can come in all sorts of varieties. It could be, you could have this very mildly, moderate, or severe ADHD. And there on the right-hand side, you can see that children are diagnosed at about 4.5 years old, the more severe cases, and you probably get earlier detection with those severe cases. Obviously, the age goes up as the more milder cases come through, because it takes a while to get that diagnosis. So here we look at a map of the whole United States. And if you zoom in right on Kansas, we lay about 9.5% of our children have ADHD diagnosis in 2011, it says. And that varies. You see Nevada has the lowest percentage. But why are these numbers increasing? Why is there such a variation in the reports? And here it says in the last 6 years, there's been a 15% jump in ADHD diagnosis according to the CDC. So about every 1 in 11 students, 8.8%, this is a national average, have ADHD. So this is pretty prevalent. Some of the reasons for that is that I've listed there that, there could be an overdiagnosis. Okay. But the Journal of Psychology and Psychiatry has posted some other things on their website that children just really aren't provided as much structure. They're not having the regular meal times, bedtimes, study times. They're not having that limit on electronic games and that stimulation. And really, right before bedtime, that has an effect on their sleep and the onset of sleep. So they're not getting as much sleep because their brain thinks, it's not nighttime because they're seeing this bright light from these games. So also, children are spending about half the time that they used to outside. And it says that they're spending about 7.5 hours, on electronic games or on electronic devices. That's not even including the time that they spend in school on electronics for whatever reason. So it says that only about 6% of kids even play outside on their own. So this journal of biological psychiatry suggests that living in states with greater sunshine may protect against the development of ADHD. That the more solar intensity, for some reason, the children in those states with the higher solar intensity have a lower percentage. So you look back at Nevada. Nevada is about 5.6%. You go to a state like North Carolina that has a really low solar intensity, and they're all the way up to 15.6%. So here we go, into classroom intervention. What do we apply in our classrooms for all students to be successful? And some ways that you can do that is you can modify the directions that you give. And so we know that these students with ADHD have a hard time following directions, and you can limit the number of directions or the amount of directions that you give. So give a minimal amount of directions and steps, and repeat those. And you can also, the form that you give those directions, so you can provide written directions and steps or visual models for these students, and then help them to refer back to these visual models or the written steps. And it can help them with the directions. Also, deconstructing tasks. Writing assignments are going to be a big problem. They just can't focus for a long length of time, and they can get discouraged. So some of the things you can do, you can deconstruct the tasks. Just give them a smaller amount of work. You can cover up the bottom, a section of the work and say, complete this. Give them a break, and then they can finish completing it. Those breaks are really good. Increasing the breaks and decreasing the amount of work that they have is really going to allow them to succeed. So organization is also a big struggle. And these students really respond positively when teachers establish classroom routines and they set procedures and maintain a well-organized learning environment. So some of the things that you can implement in your classroom to really have the clear rules and do advanced planning, you can give them an assignment notebook that helps them stay organized with their homework, color-coded folders, homework partners, so getting that peer collaboration. You can do clean-out dates. Every Friday you have to clean out your folder so that they don't get all that clutter and confusion. And then, a checklist for their homework is also a really good thing. So creating a culture in a classroom, you know what, it can either create and support the student, or it can create barriers. And so we really want to foster positive behavior, academic and social success, paying attention in the classroom, building positive relationships with students, and adopting some of these classroom management techniques will really help you succeed in your classroom with all of your students. So when we're taking these proactive classroom management steps, you really want to give meaningful feedback and clear direction, opportunities to collaborate with each other. So students are collaborating with each other and working together. So all of these things will create a wonderful classroom environment, an inclusive environment that is great for everyone. So I really appreciate your time, and I hope that you have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you so much.